And this is very important to me. This is something that I'm very passionate about. Come on up, Galvin. Miss Abbott, you can come on up if you want to as well. Anybody can. Media, you can come on this end too if you want. I want to read a couple things. You all know that the Alabama State Department of Education unveiled the annual Alabama State Report Card. They revealed it last week, and it covered all schools statewide, those included in our city. Birmingham City Schools received an overall letter grade of C. To be exact, the score was a 72. Each of the 43 schools also received a letter grade reflecting varied progress towards state goals. Now, Birmingham City Schools has 43 schools that received a grade. 25 out of the 43 schools, which if you do the math real quick, is almost 60%, 58% to be exact, received a D or an F grade, categorizing them as priority schools according to state standards. The grade letter summarizes a school's overall performance, considering achievement, graduation rates, readiness for post-high school life, and chronic absentees. There were three elementary schools and one high school that received a letter grade A, and I think it's important that we say the good, the okay, and the bad out loud, because we need to own our data. No, I'm not the superintendent. No, I am not the school board, but I am the mayor of the city, where I think everything we are attempting to do is directly attached to education. And so we all collectively own this data. The three elementary schools that received the letter grade A, and middle schools as well, were Epic Alternative School, Phillips Academy, and W.J. Christian. One high school received a letter grade A, and that's Ramsey High School. There was one school that received a B. That elementary school is Princeton. 11 schools received a letter grade C. This combined elementary schools, middle schools, K through 8 schools, and 2 high schools, and I will read them. Again, this is the letter grade C. Avondale Elementary, Central Park, Charles Brown, Glen Iris, Norwood, Oxmoor Valley, Robertson, Southampton, Sun Valley, Washington, and Wilkerson. And the 2 high schools are Huffman High and Carver High. But the schools receiving D's and F's, there were 21 elementary and middle schools: Arrington, Barrett, Bush Hills, Green Acres, Hayes, Hemphill, Hudson, Huffman Academy, Huffman Middle, Inglenook, Jones Valley, Martha Gaskin, Minor, Oliver, Osseware, Putnam, Tuggle, Smith, the Virtual Academy, West End Academy, and Wylam. And the 4 high schools, Jackson Olin, Parker, Winona, and Woodlawn. And so BCS has a total of 16 schools to improve. Actually, let me say that again. BCS had a total of 16 schools to improve. So I never want to talk about the challenges first. I want to talk about the improvements. This is a good improvement to have 16 schools improve. 9 improve an entire letter grade. And so those schools are Brown, Central Park, Epic Alternative, Glen Iris, Hemphill, Norwood, Phillips, Robertson, Sun Valley, Washington, Wilkerson, W.J. Christian, and the high schools that improve, Carver and Huffman and Ramsey. As you know, parents are allowed to visit statereportcard.alsde.edu, and they can learn more information about their individual school that their child attends. That is from a stat standpoint. The following, what I want to do is break down the importance of this information and how I think it relates to. Do you have a piece of tissue? Thank you so much. Getting over a sinus infection, everybody. I apologize, but I cannot be on TV with my nose running. That's pretty embarrassing, actually. Thank you, Marie. I appreciate you. Thank you, Lifesavers. I attended Birmingham City Schools K through 8, so this is personal. My mother was a teacher for 11 years in the county schools, and my stepmother was a teacher for 33 years in Birmingham City Schools. This is personal. Galvin leads the Division of Youth Services for the city of Birmingham, and so he's equally passionate. And a lot of the things up here in my head I give to him and he runs with, and so I'm proud of him and his team for what they do in support of our schools. I met Galvin when I was 11 years old. We walked to the bus stop together. He was a year ahead of me, and I always looked up to him, and we both attended Putnam Middle School. And some years later, when I finished high school and I finished college and I came back and moved to Birmingham, I started a breakfast club with my college roommate who also went to Putnam Middle School. His name is John Cox. And we used to go to the school early in the morning, a few days a week. We started with the 6th grade boys. We would bring in breakfast. They come off the bus, and instead of going into the cafeteria, they would come into the library, and we would teach them all type of life skills. And one of the things we talked about often was work ethic. And I would tell those boys that, with a few exceptions, because there are some subjects that are hard, there are some teachers that are really hard, but with that few exception, I told them that getting C's and being comfortable with C's meant the following: that you were either lazy, didn't care, or were doing the bare minimum. And so often I would ask them that, hey, be honest with me, are you okay with the C? And they would raise their hand, and I would just drill it into them. Okay, so tell me, which one are you? Are you lazy? You don't care, or you're doing the bare minimum? Which one? Lazy, don't care, or doing the bare minimum? And I would do it over and over and say, hey, be honest, which one are you? And they would say out loud, I'm lazy. I don't care. I'm doing the bare minimum. What does that have to do with anything I've just mentioned to you? It has a lot to do with it. Because the same thing I would say to those 6th grade boys when they got into 7th grade, when they got into 8th grade, I would tell that to every adult that is employed with the Birmingham City School system. I would say it to the school board. I would say it to the superintendent. I would say it to the superintendent's cabinet. I would say it to those people who are responsible for the principals. I would say it to the principals, the assistant principals, the teachers, the custodians, the bus drivers, cafeteria workers, and every single employee group that I miss. Nick Saban likes to say we got about 24 hours to celebrate, and then we got to get back to work. So while I applaud Birmingham City Schools, when this state test was first administered, that they've gone from a D to a C, that 24 hours is over. C's, in my humble opinion, are unacceptable. And I do not accept the district as a system. And I'm pretty sure they would agree with me. I haven't talked to them. That although a 72 is passing, that doesn't cut it. Because if I drill down, our children deserve A's and B's, not just the actual school, not just the district. And that if I pose the question to a district, which one are we doing? Which one are we? Are we being lazy as adults? Are we doing the bare minimum as adults? Or do we not care as adults? I would definitely say that for the individual schools with D's and F's. Now, I want to be very clear. This is not a matter of the Spider-Man meme where everybody points at somebody else. So I'm not blaming any one particular adult group. There's no time to blame teachers. There's no time to blame students or parents or any adult group that includes the school board or the superintendent. We're all accountable. If you are an adult in this community, we are all responsible for educating our children. And we should be doing everything necessary to educate our children. And we should not accept D's and F's, and we should not be comfortable with C's. Because these are our children. And as far as I'm concerned, if a current school is at a DNF, we should move with a sense of urgency. Come on through. We should move with a sense of urgency and do whatever's necessary legally, because cheating is not cool. Don't do that. That's dumb and stupid. That gets you fired. Don't do that. But everything that's legal, we should be moving with a sense of urgency, because I find this not acceptable. If you are a parent, this should not be acceptable. If you are a teacher, this should not be acceptable. If you are a principal, a superintendent, a school board member, this is not acceptable. For 6 years, I feel I've been a great partner with the school system and with leadership, and I will continue to communicate with them. But there is no world where I'm just going to be quiet about what exists. Our 24 hours are over. So I would say this. Because my parents, my mother and stepmother, are retired teachers, I have an affinity toward teachers, so I never pick on teachers. I actually feel bad for them, and I know their jobs are extremely hard. And so kudos to the teachers that are busting their butt every single day and giving everything, that they love their children, that they're passionate about presenting and being in front of their children. And what they do goes well beyond 8 a.m. to 3 p.m. However, if you are a teacher in the Birmingham City Schools and you are lazy and you're doing the bare minimum, or you don't care anymore about the children that come to your class, please resign. Please retire. Please leave. We don't want you. That's pretty direct. Some people may get mad at me for saying that, but it needs to be said. Because our children already have a lot going on at home. I'm going to get to home in a minute, by the way. But our children already have a lot going on at home. And so there's a higher expectation in an urban school system like Birmingham that our teachers go well beyond just being responsible for their curriculum. That it takes some extra pouring on, some extra leaning in of loving that child, of caring for that child, of doing everything you can for that child, of that school having a washer and dryer, because at home they may not have a washer and dryer, and the kid may be too embarrassed, so they act out when they come to school because their shirt dirty. And so what am I talking about? In this, what I just read to you, the best example I can give, the school that I am most proud of, the leadership that I am most proud of, is Central Park Elementary School, because they went from an F to a C. Y'all know how hard it is to do in 1 year? This principal has only been in the district 3 semesters, all last year, and the completion of this one semester that just was completed last Friday. So in 1 school year, he moved this school from an F to a C. That is hard. But I want to be clear. That principal, those teachers, that school has the same demographics as all the other schools in the city of Birmingham. So if he can move his school from an F to a C, then all the schools can move. All the principals can move. All the teachers can move. That's a fair question. Mr. Principal, how did you do it? And then you listen to him. He talks about his words, not mine. I made more deposits into my human capital than withdrawals. He invested more into his teachers. Washed their cars, stayed at the school late with them, arrived early as they did. Figured out what are their needs, what are their wants, so they can maximize their time in front of their children. Ladies and gentlemen, we call that culture and climate. He focused on the morale of his teachers. He did everything in his power to empower his teachers for them to give their best for their children. That's an intangible. But I'm going to tell you, if you don't have it, if you don't have a school where a principal is focused on culture and climate, you cannot teach. I'm not an educator. Don't take my word for it. Take his. Go interview him. Go talk to him. Go embed yourself in his school. Some of these schools, I'm going to pull it up. I got a school that went from a D to an F. I got another school that went from a C to a D. I got another school that went from a D to an F. I got too many schools that went down. We have too many schools that went down. I want to be very clear. I respect Dr. Sullivan. I do not envy his job. I think his job is extremely hard. I found that when we talk and we collaborate, we get things done. So I respect him as the superintendent and CEO of our system. But like you, I desire more of this district. Not just him, not just the board, but of this district. That our students at this moment as adults require us to be bold. We should be making recommendations. The superintendent should be making recommendations to his board that are out of the box. We should be trying things differently to move the needle for our children. So, parents don't get to escape from this conversation. Because I told y'all months ago we had an absentee problem. And I told you these state grades are not just predicated on testing, but absentees and high absentees and chronic absentees are factored into these scores. I got schools that have up north of 20 and 30% chronic absentees. And I'm not just talking high schools where it's possible that, oh, come on, we know high school children skip school. That's not what I'm talking about. Because if I go through this data, and I encourage every person, go through it. I got elementary schools, y'all, where people as adults are too comfortable with 6-year-olds, 7-year-olds, 8-year-olds, and 9-year-olds missing school. Unexcused absences, chronic absentees. That's not on the child, that's on the adult. If there was one thing that as adults in this community we could get right, it's just the ability for children to go to school. Parent, if you're uneducated yourself, parent if you're working too much, parent if you don't understand, that's fine. One request, please make sure your child comes to school. And if they have to be out, please provide an excuse. I don't think that is a tall request. And yeah, I got hammered because people thought I was only approaching it from a stick standpoint a few months ago when I talked about it and I brought up the district attorney's office. So here's a carrot. I go through this data and I see schools like Hayes, Hudson, Putnam, and a few others. Majority of students are zoned from public housing. So I'm going to get with the CEO of the Housing Authority. And we're going to come up with a carrot. And we're going to say, hey, if your child has perfect attendance for this month, you have the ability to get in a raffle and your rent can be free for that month. I shouldn't have to incentivize attendance, but I will. I'll do it in conjunction with, I need to wipe my nose. Thank you. I need to wipe my nose, everybody. My nose is running. I'm not embarrassed to say it. Thanks, man. For those who will watch this later, don't crack on me. This is an important conversation. And all adults have equal culpability, and all adults should be held accountable for what exists at the state of our schools. I'm grateful to every adult who gives their max, to every teacher, to every employee in the school system who goes above and beyond the call of duty for our children. Thank you. I admire you. I appreciate you. I love you, and I will bust my butt to continue to support you. But if you are one of those employees in front of our children and you are lazy, don't care, doing the bare minimum, please step aside. That's my time. Anybody got any questions?
You mentioned, Dr. Sullivan, have you guys had any conversations since the report card came down, any incentives moving into the next year?
Incentive part, no. Conversation, yes. I asked them the same question I asked principals. I want to know, how does the grade make you feel, right? Dr. Sullivan, how does having a C make you feel? Well, if you are over an entire system, I think he feels better because he can point to improvement. And I think he feels where schools have gone from here to here, he doesn't like it. So I think he'll do what he needs to do. I want to encourage him to do what he needs to do. And I want to encourage the board, if he makes some bold recommendations, they need to support him on what he needs to do as the leader, CEO, superintendent. But a better conversation is with a principal. If you are a school and you went from a D to an F, how do you feel? If you were a teacher at that school, you went from a D to an F, how do you feel? If you were an F last year and an F this year, how do you feel? If you are a parent and your child has chronic absentees, you are a part of that issue. How do you feel? Cool part is, my favorite question was to the principal of Central Park. You came into a school last year, you weren't even from the district, you inherited an F. How did that make you feel? He didn't like it. He's competitive by nature and he wants to win, but he says more important for my teachers to win. He says more important than they win. He didn't say students. He says, I want my children to win. That's the type of leaders we need. Who else? I said it all, I guess.
On a slightly different topic, Ramsey McCormick came up at the council today.
Yes.
An extension